All right, boys, we're live. This is episode 32 of the Deconstruction Podcast, brought to you by Jobtable, the simplest way to grow and manage your construction business. Let's kick it off here with a review. All right, so this is from Michael Chanis. He's a roofing contractor here in Toronto. The simplicity of this app helps me maintain my sanity in the crazy world of owning a small roofing company. Great for lead calls with the picture attachment to quotes before and invoices after. My pro tip to anyone with or considering a subscription from the app is to save all line item labels, description, and costs. You can always edit those three things for future jobs and resave. I've been a member since August 2023. Very satisfied with the product.
Amazing.
Shout out to Mike.
Shout out Mike Chanis. Thank you.
Yes, sir. How you guys doing?
Feeling great. How are you guys?
Excellent.
Doing
What
good.
do we have on the docket? What's on the
Hold on,
docket today?
let's just take a moment to just like recap. 32 episodes. That's pretty good. Going strong.
Still early.
I know.
Why is that why did you choose 32 as a milestone?
I can't believe we've done 32 episodes already. It just seems seems like we just started like last week, right? So
Yeah.
I just can't wait till we
keep
start
going.
seeing like three digits.
yeah,
Once we get to that 100,
Yeah.
that's when
for real.
we'll get there. But yeah, 32. That's I think the average podcast is like 7 episodes.
Oh wow.
That's how long it lasts.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, we're on the right track. For all you listeners,
Yeah,
please
we're definitely on the
please
right
subscribe. Give us a shout out. Like.
Yeah, because we're not going anywhere.
We're
So
here.
let's kick it off here. We got I came across this article. I just want to highlight this one part of it, which I thought was interesting. So the hidden cost of manual processes. This is something we just talk about all the time with ourselves, people we speak to, clients. So a recent Forbes study found that inefficient workflows cost businesses an estimated 20 to 30% of their annual revenue. In construction, where margins are tight and delays are costly, these inefficiencies can be devastating. Take, for example, invoice approvals. In many firms, paper-based invoices continue to be manually collected, scanned, reviewed, and approved, often requiring multiple layers of sign-off. If an invoice gets stuck in someone's inbox or is misplaced, payment delays can strain relationships with vendors and lead to costly penalties. So I just wanted to highlight that point, right? Because this is just something that's, very relatable to conversations we have with people every single day, right? With like just how inefficient they're working. And I know you guys can relate to. Before Jobtable, is the reason why we created Jobtable is because, you guys were growing, building, but just like we're doing things very inefficiently, old school pen and paper, didn't have good processes, and now your efficiency has totally taken a 180, and so I thought that was interesting. Johnny, what's your when you have these conversations with contractors, what are some of the things what are some of the inefficiencies that you're seeing a lot of contractors make?
Truthfully, it's the same inefficiencies on how we started Jobtable, right? Just everything was manually done. If that piece of paper gets lost in a truck, gets lost in somebody's toolbox, back pocket, the information is gone, and now you're trying to recall everything that you have to do. So like those inefficiencies were just, truthfully a pain in the ass. And I knew that there was just a better solution out there, and talking to other guys in the trade too, and they're like, yeah, it drives me nuts. Also, having to be behind a desk to do all your invoicing, trying to collect your paperwork, sitting at a desk for hours and hours. I just thought, I was like, this is truthfully no way to run a business. Like, you can see why a lot of people, they'll start a business and they'll say, you know what? Fuck it, it's not worth it, right? Like I have to do what I got to do on site day to day, and then on top of it, I'm wasting my nights, my weekends away from my family, my friends. So like the inefficiencies, I can speak, for myself, they were driving me nuts. I was wasting so much time. I felt like, to just get a week done, I always felt like there was not enough time in a week. Um, where when you
But didn't it feel though? Sorry to cut you off. Didn't it feel like you were doing it the right way though?
Well, look, yeah,
Like
we don't know anything
when you're
else.
in
We
it,
don't know anything else.
yeah, yeah. When you're in it, you truly believe that it's part of the job. Like it's just like, yeah, this is every day, and it almost becomes like a part of your day to day to a point that that doesn't bother you. Because I remember feeling that a lot, where it's like me and you would spend the weekends invoicing, paper invoices, and just writing up quotes. And that was just like part of the process. It's like, hey, Saturday I'm going to go to Johnny's house, and we're just going to go through all the quotes and get all our invoicing done.
Yeah.
It was part of your daily routine.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, but
That's really true. It's like this bottleneck that's there, but like you don't realize it's there.
You're very
until, like,
oblivious.
You're actually
Yeah.
like presented and actually start doing something different to the point where you're like, holy shit, like what the hell have I been doing this whole time? And then like
and
you
I
can't
actually
unsee it.
And I find that like fascinating, the psychology behind it, because we still speak to people today who, even when presented with a solution right in front of them, and you can literally paint the picture for them, they still will turn around and tell you, no, this is the way I've been doing it for 20 years. I'll never change. This is the right way. Because in their mind, they think it's like, if it's not broken, don't fix it. But these people truly don't see the value of their own time.
well, look,
Right?
we
It's like-
we were a victim to that until we got to a point where it was just unmanageable, right? And this is the problem, like you said, Charlie. People don't see it. They think that the way they're doing it, this is the right way. This is my process. But if they're not open to changing the process to make things better, then 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the line, they're still stuck in that like rat race to get everything done that the company actually needs done in an efficient and timely manner, right? Like again, in construction, what's the biggest factor, right? The biggest factor is cash flow, right? In order for a company to survive and to be successful, it's all about managing cash flow. And what does that translate into? That translates into invoicing, but like invoicing properly, right? How many times have people send an invoice, then the client finally, when they look at it, they come back and it's like, hey, you billed me for this. This was not correct. So now you got to go back. You got to fix that invoice. So think about all those inefficiencies to even just correct an invoice and get it back to them so you're paid on time, right? And again, like a lot of people that we speak to now because of Jobtable, they think we're trying to sell them on something, right? And I always go back to, I remember when my uncle, when he came from Europe, right? Like when they immigrated here, and first thing he did, he said, I landed on a Monday. By Tuesday, I was working in construction, and this was, I believe, like the early '70s or mid '70s. Anyways, I always translate it back to, the power drill, right? He tells me, he's like, we used to drill. It used to be like an auger, right? It used to have the drill bit on the end, and we used to drill through studs, right? And when somebody presented us with a power drill, everybody, even the company owners, they're like, I've been drilling holes like this forever. Like, get out of here. Fast forward to today. Can you imagine somebody coming on site with that tool, to like drill holes when you have like hundreds of holes to drill? It's like, what are you doing? It's like, go.
So do you think
pick 'em up.
do you think that's like stubbornness, or do you think it's just fear of the unknown, like the unwillingness to try something? What do you think it is?
Personally, I think it's a mixture between everything. I think listen, we're all victim of it, right? We're very egotistical, right? Everybody, how are you going to tell me how to run my company? How are you going to tell me what works for me, what doesn't work for me, right? But if you don't give somebody the time of day to say, okay, let me show you, right? Let me show you how I could save you 5 hours a week. Let me show you how I could save you 25 hours a month. You know what I mean? On average, right? People can't take 20 minutes to better themselves, right? For the long haul. Everybody thinks it's a sales pitch, right? And again,
Yeah.
and this is where I think our Jobtable sets us apart from anything else on the market, is because, again, right? We built this for us internally. We didn't build this to take to market, right? We built this for us, because we tried certain things and it was like, this is too complicated. Oh, I don't like the way this operates. This doesn't function the way construction actually like works, from a quote to a job, and how you project manage, how you invoice partially, how you do work orders, timesheets. So we built this for us internally. It was so powerful that when we took it to market, truthfully, we all thought that everybody was just going to jump on board, right? And as we speak to people, sure, we get a lot of new clients daily, weekly, monthly, right? But how many people still do not even give you the time of day to say, look, man, take 15 minutes. We don't want nothing from it. We're trying to help you, right? And
I think the tides are turning though, John. Like I honestly, the people that are stubborn and like unwilling to try something new, I think these are like it's the older generation that's like, and we're seeing that. Just you talk to younger companies that are starting out, most of them are already using a software, right? So they're kind of like getting with the times. So, and I think that's going to continue to change as time progresses with AI coming out. Like you're kind of being forced into using something at this point. And the ones that are not using anything, I think are going to slowly get phased out as well. They just won't be able to keep up.
yeah. God, so as somebody who's not in the industry, like when you talk, now obviously talking to so many contractors daily, weekly, how does your brain process this? Like you being a tech guy, always being, always looking to be on the cutting edge of efficiency. When you talk to these guys, and sometimes like they won't even give you the time of day, right? Like how do you process that? Yeah, as an outsider looking into this industry.
Yeah, I think it's kind of like tying it to kind of what Charlie said, right? I think so. Yeah, I agree with the fact that a lot of the younger guys, they are using software, but I think it goes a little bit beyond that. And we spoke about this in one of the previous episodes. I think the vast majority of business owners, they're just employees of their own business, right? So these are the people, and this is the bulk of business owners. If you just look at the numbers and the stats, it's like, most businesses aren't doing like close to $1 million a year, right? A few $100,000, and the ones that, and that's the bulk of them. And those are the guys that will always be in that same position. Those are the guys that are very reluctant to change. Even if they're using a software, you present them with like a software that's cheaper and better, they still want to use their existing one because, again, even if they're using a software, which is a good step, they're still kind of stuck in that mentality of like, oh, what I'm doing is the right way. So like they're reluctant to change. But those are the people that are never going to grow and get beyond that plateau that they'll always be stuck in. I think that's what really separates the high performers, the best entrepreneurs, the best business people that are constantly growing and building. You got to be open to change. You got to explore new things, look at ways to save you time. Even if you think you're as efficient as possible. Like I think I'm a pretty efficient person, but like I am always looking to, even save myself a minute. Like how can I gain back a minute? Like I'm always in that mentality, and I think that's a key characteristic with just a lot of the highest performers that I know.
There is a correlation between business growth too, right? Like, and in all fairness, I've spoken to some business owners that will flat out tell me, I don't use a software, I don't plan on using a software. But with that being said, I don't plan on growing. I am happy where I am. It's me. I have a couple of employees, and I'm content with that. And I respect that, right? And they'll flat out tell me, I hate looking at my iPhone. I don't even like technology to begin with. So, there's going to be those people that are happy with where they are, and they don't intend on growing their business. But the second, you want to hit that milestone of $1 million, and you want to hit $5 and $10 million. The reality of it is if you're not using something in your day-to-day to help you, like a software, it's going to be very, very hard to keep up.
Yeah, you're going to drown. You're going to collapse. And look at this. So I put this. This is how I kind of like to frame it. And again, we spoke about this, but I just kind of whipped this up quickly. So, and kind of tying it back to that article, right? So the average company, the inefficiencies are costing an estimated 20 to 30% of their annual revenue. personally, I think that might be a little understated compared to like a lot of people I speak to. So just look at these numbers, right? If you're someone that's spending 10 hours per week on admin, right? And again, I think I'm using very like low, I think conservative numbers, right? So typical contractor, 10 hours a week on admin, like quoting, invoicing, time tracking, whatever, right? Times 52 weeks, that's 520 hours of admin in a year. Okay. Now, if you're billing yourself, if your cost as an owner is 75 an hour, which again I think is low if you factor in like operating expenses, insurance, office, whatever. This is probably a higher number, but let's just use 75. So 75 an hour times 520 hours a year, that's $39,000 that it's costing in admin work. Okay. Now, using a software like Jobtable, again, these are not just numbers we're throwing out. Like you're saving, you're cutting that time in half at least.
At a
Okay, so
minimum.
if you're using that at a minimum,
Yeah.
so if you're just conservatively cutting that time in half, you're instantly saving $19,500 in savings. Now, if you just deduct $600, because that's what Jobtable costs you in a year, you're netting 18,900 in savings. What's the ROI on that? 3,050% ROI on your time.
Now, you know what's
Like,
crazy?
like
You know what's crazy? You talk to any of these contractors and you ask them if they want to make an investment that in a year they're going to make 3,050%. You'll see, 99.9999%, even 100% of people jump on board, right? When you present.
Never mind that. If you show someone you're gonna make like 20%
I know.
ROI.
I know.
Like, most
That's
will
what I'm
jump on
saying.
that, So like,
Yeah.
like it's crazy to me. So yeah, like this is just the reality. This is just the reality. I think that article 20-30% might be low, but it's yeah. When I read that, I'm like, fuck, like this is legit. Like I speak to people all the time who are literally saving these kind of numbers in a year. So
And the reality is, who doesn't
yeah.
want to have a program that allows you to run your business more efficiently, right? Like I always say, I noticed a lot of the people only run to some type of software when they're bursting at the seams, and they literally don't know which way to turn. They're growing, which is great. Their business, they're expanding, or they got into a different sector. They're doing more work, or they got more employees, or like their revenue's going up, and they're bursting from the seams, and then all of a sudden, it's like, oh my God, I need something. I'm drowning over here. And I remember having this conversation with somebody a few months ago where, he was one guy and one employee, and he was looking to hire a few guys, but he's like, you know what, I'm going to probably sign up and get a software in the next couple of months, once the employees come on board and I can use it more efficiently. And my thought process to that is like, now that you're at a scalable point, don't you want to implement the stuff before the shit hits the fan, right? Like, don't you want to, like, there's a reason why you have insurance, right? Do you get into a car accident and then call the insurance company and say, I need insurance? No, you have it in case you get into that car accident, right? Like you're protecting yourself, right? Just like I always say, your business is one of your biggest assets, right? So wouldn't you want to have processes, procedures in place so that whether you want to stick to one guy in a truck, one guy and one employee, you're running as efficient as can be on your admin side, but also if your business starts to take off, you're already set up, right? Where it's very easy to implement new changes, right? And to manage them very easily, right?
Yeah, that's a good point. That's still a common kind of objection I hear all the time from guys. It's like, yeah, this looks amazing, but I'm still too small. I'm gonna sign up when I have a few employees, and it's like that's a total opposite way you got to go about it. It's way harder to implement new processes, new systems, new software when you're a growing company and you have like a bunch of employees, and now to change the processes at that point, it's like steering a ship in the water, like turning it around. It's very hard to do that. Do it when you're smaller, just like on a tugboat with 1-2 guys, and like it's easier to do that. So the best time to implement a software is as early as possible.
Yeah. And truthfully too, sorry, just like one last point on this. Truthfully too, we talk a lot about how, it makes a company look professional on invoicing, on, work orders, timesheet, like any of that stuff, the quotes. But another thing that people, like these business owners have to understand too, is the way the employees view it, right? When you're organized as a company, employees really appreciate that. They actually, that's where they tend to look up to the boss, right? Because it's like, holy shit, this guy has his stuff figured out, right? If you're running in like a million miles a minute and there's no processes and procedures, it really translates down to the crews, right? Or to your workers on site and how they view the owners. You know what I mean? Because it makes them look like cowboys, right? Like they're just running a business to make money. They don't give a shit about anything else. Oh, I came to site. This guy doesn't even know what I have to do here. There's not even a proper schedule. I'm doing a service call. I'm giving them the information. He's calling me, asking me 3-4 times for it. I'm texting it to him. There's no process, right? And I'm telling you, it weighs on the employees because, once you have a company policy where it's like, you know what, guys, you work for me, you sign in, you sign out. This is the way our timesheets work. This is the way our work orders work. If you go somewhere, take pictures, I need to add the pictures to this. This is my company process. I'm telling you, the employees, they appreciate that, right? They look at it like, holy shit, these guys got their stuff together, right?
Yeah, it makes their life easier. Absolutely.
100%. That also translates into the quality of the work too, right? If you have no processes, no procedures, cowboy, everything's like just wild. Like, how do you think the output is going to be? How's the quality of the work going to be?
And to your point, Costa, the guy that has that has maybe one employee or it's just himself, he's going to utilize the app just as much as the person that has 30 employees. He still has to do quotations. He still has to invoice. He still needs to create a schedule. He needs his financial reports. So everything is going to be utilized, and doing it from the beginning, you're actually kind of, you're creating a strong and solid foundation. So when you start bringing in employees, now they're walking into an extremely organized company that's already ready to go, rather than trying to implement something and a system when you have all of these moving parts already going on, right? So yeah, it's a definite must.
This also reminds me of something I heard not too long ago, which totally resonates and I agree with, is like back to like high performers, right? And I bet you guys agree with this too. So like, think about the most successful people right? People running like 7, 8, 9-figure businesses. And like, let's say and they're busy, right? Like their schedule's packed, like running multiple companies, like always on the go. If you send someone like that, let's say an email, compared to someone who is like not as busy, who do you think responds faster to an email?
The busy one.
100 every time. It's like you almost get an instant response. This guy's like so busy running multiple companies, but like he's replying to an email almost instantly. And it's like, why is that? And it kind of ties into this. Like these are people who are like just acting fast, like making decisions fast, like not like dwelling on like, like overthinking. It's like they're just trying to move and progress. If you want to get to that level, like you got to change your total frame of mind and like rewire the way you function and just like act faster. Like if you see something in front of your face that is going to improve your business, save you time, get you 3,050% ROI, it's like you got to act on that. Like high performers are not friggin' hesitating on
Yeah, and sorry, go Charlie,
yeah.
go.
No, I was going to say quickly, that's what you just said. It's like, I can speak from personal experience that I remember when we started iPlum, and I still had this like employee mindset where I would come home and at 5 o'clock, an email would come through and I'm like, I'm not looking at this until tomorrow because I was off the clock. And it wasn't until, it was inevitable and unavoidable where I had to start responding and creating material lists, sending them off, contacting my guys or contacting a client at 8 o'clock at night, that it became part of my life and I accepted it. And I think once you start looking at that as not a negative, but a positive and as part of your daily routine, the more your business and your mindset starts to flourish, because now you're no longer looking at it as a negative, where most people that work a 9 to 5, they come home and they view work in a very negative light, right? And rightfully so. I mean, they're getting paid and they're not, other than their hourly rate, they don't have any benefit, right, coming from the company. So they come home 5 o'clock, they kind of shut down. So that mindset there is very, very different from a successful entrepreneur who now incorporates his work into his life, right? And then, like I said, then there's endless opportunities that happen, because now, an email comes through, you're actually, oh, who's this emailing me? Let me take care of this right now. And actually, people will say, well, you shouldn't, then you have kids, and you do have to make time for your kids, but it's also very important to lead by example, that you're showing your children that work is not a negative thing. It doesn't have to be, right? So it's like you're welcoming anything that's coming in, and you're setting an example, you're leading by example and showing them that it can be a positive.
Look, just to finish off here on this topic, in the end of it, construction is all about deadlines, right? Whether it's to submit a quote, whether it's to submit an invoice, whether it's to finish a section of the project, whether it's to get to that service call on time, scheduling, whether it's a deadline for your employees to submit timesheets, it doesn't matter, right? So construction is such a fast-paced world that, truthfully, you need a software to keep up and run as efficient as, the demands are, right? The demands are high, so you need something that can process fast, where you can do things on the go, right? So in the end of it, for anybody listening, obviously sign up to Jobtable, but at the same time, look, even if it's not Jobtable, right? Anybody who's still doing these carbon copies, paper, text message quotes, you guys have to stop it. I'm telling you, it is a direct outlook on what your company looks like, how you function, right? How you're going to meet timelines, how you're going to meet deadlines, how you're going to interact with the client. And then, like we say all the time, you could be the best tiler in the world, right? If you're sending a quote through a text message and you told them that you would send it to them by the end of the day, and you sent it 3 days later, and the client has to follow up with you, I'm telling you, man, it is not a good look, right? It's not a good look. Get something where you can do things on the fly from your phone, tablet, if you like to work at a computer, but something where it's quick, something that you don't need to spend that much time, right, worrying about, stuff that you can knock off the list very quickly. And like Costa said, it's a 3,000+% ROI at the end of the year. The numbers are there. These are not, and those are deflated numbers, not inflated numbers, right? So again, whether it's a program like Jobtable or something else on the market, take the time to do demos. Go check them out, because I'm telling you, man, it's right under your nose, okay? And you're not seeing it. You're looking at it like, oh, but it's going to cost me, X amount per month. Okay, but how much is it saving you? Right? Don't look at what it's costing you. Look at what it's saving you.
It's such a shame what you said, right? One of those, think about how many skilled tradesmen are out there that are just not doing as good as they could, as what their potential is. And I say this example of when I was looking for arborists at my house. I got 3 quotes from 3 separate companies. The first guy that came was amazing. Went around, we hit it off, very knowledgeable, super skilled, clearly at what he does. And I'm like, yeah, for sure, I'm just gonna go with this guy. But he comes around the house, he looks around the house, all right, give me 20 minutes. I'm gonna just prepare the quote and give it back to you. I'm like, all right, perfect. He comes back 20 minutes later, knocking on my door, and hands me a handwritten quote with like chicken scratch. Like I couldn't even read like 80% of what was on this quote. And like I'm busy. Like I'm not gonna like call him back and be like, oh, I can't read this. Like, what does this number say? Like I can't even read what this is. So that skilled guy lost that job. I ended up going with the second best, who just sent me a quote in like a very like professional manner, online, digital approval. Like it was nothing to think about. So now I'm just thinking like this guy, as skilled as he is losing out on so many jobs because of literally how he's presenting quotes.
Yeah.
And like he doesn't, back to what you said earlier, Charlie, he doesn't think it's a problem. He's probably doing okay. No. But I guarantee you, if he changed just that part of his business may like 2x, 3x, like overnight.
Well, look, even you know, when I was building my house, and Charlie built his just after me, you know, there was a kitchen company I used, and don't get me wrong, they're pricey. You know what I mean? Compared to a lot of people you're gonna get quotes from, they're pricey. And I remember, you know, Charlie and other people saying, oh, okay, what's the kitchen made out of gold or whatever? And it's like, look, man, these guys are just very professional. They're efficient. They're professional. When they say they're going to show up, they show up. You know what I mean? And I ended up going with them. And I'll tell you right now, out of every trade that came through that house, okay, they were the ones that when they said they were going to do something, they did it. When they said they were going to show up, they showed up on time, right? When they said they were going to send a quote, they sent a quote, detailed, everything. They were very professional, okay? And I tell you, out of everybody I've referred that to, Charlie included, everybody has used them, right? Now think about this. They're charging on average 30, 40, sometimes 50% more than what other companies are charging. But because of their efficiency, because of their professionalism, you know what I mean? Because they stick to a schedule, because the way they present the quotes, because the way they present themselves, they've created a market that you can say whatever you want. Sure, you can get any kitchen company to come in. Oh, I make cabinets in my garage, I make cabinets in my shop. I'm telling you, the second that they come in, whether you're using them and it's within the budget or not, you want to use them. Why? Because of the way they've presented themselves, right? Understand, it's like we've said it many times. That first interaction with a client, that first quote that they see from you, right? That is the starting point on the representation that the client is getting from you, right? Again, if you're sending quotes through text, you know, through WhatsApp, through like, you know, if you're saying you're going to send it at the end of the day and that client is chasing you for that quote because you don't have enough time to physically, you know, sit there and either type it up on a Word document or whatever it is, whatever, you know, shenanigans you're using, you're losing business, man. You're losing business. And unfortunately, you're not giving a good first impression. Those first impressions mean everything.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Switching topics here. This is an interesting one. This was actually sent to me as a topic here. So I'm just going to cue this up. I'm going to let this video play here. It's like not too long, but check it out. Oops.
18 and 19-year-olds, and you're thinking about sending them to college. We live in a day and age now where you can make more money cutting grass, landscaping, starting a car wash business, and HVAC company, or becoming a plumber than you can going to college or sending your kids to college to rack up anywhere from 60, 80, and in some cases $100,000 worth of debt. And they'll get out of school, if they're lucky, and get a job making $50,000 to $60,000 a year. The blue collar trades are turning white, folks. Nobody knows how to do anything anymore. Before the age of college, we'd send all our kids to trade school, and that's gone, and that's created a shortage. Do yourself a favor, get your kids in trade school if you want them to be successful.
So
that's a great video.
Yeah, I thought so too. So, you know, we all have young kids. You know, traditional path is, you know, go to school, get good grades, go to college, go to university. Um, Charlie, what's your take? Like, how are you looking at, your kid's situation, their path, their future? Are they going to university?
First thing I look at is myself. I'm a high school dropout. Johnny is as well. And we managed to, not only open a business, but open a successful one. And then, open another company as well. So I think about my story, and then I look at my kids, and I realize that I'm not only building and creating businesses for myself and my family, but it's for a future for my kids. I have the hope that they're gonna want to take the reins and steer the ship eventually when me, you, and Johnny can't do it anymore, right? Now, with that being said, if my kids were ever to come up to me and say, Dad, I want to be a firefighter, or Dad, I want to be a cop, or I want to be a mechanical engineer, then I would never stand in their way, right? I would actually, help them as much as I can in order to attain that goal, go to school, study hard, and, become a firefighter if that's their passion, or become a mechanical engineer, whatever the case may be. But with that being said, I think a lot of kids these days, they're asked to choose a career at the age of 17 and choose something that they're going to be doing for the rest of their lives at a young age, where they're so fragile and they have absolutely no idea what they're even doing and what they want to do on the weekend, let alone for the rest of their lives. So I think this is where, like, the importance of the education as a father to a son or a daughter, and the education of a mother to their kids, when it comes to financials and business, is so crucial at a young age, to not only show them that, like, look, school is an option, like to go to university or college is an option, but there's also, this option of being an entrepreneur as well, right? Now, with that being said, I do believe you need to learn a skill for the most part. Like, there are some things you need to go through. Most people don't just jump into entrepreneurship. But if it was up to me, right out of high school, my kids would just come and start working for me in the business, which I plan on doing before, like, during high school. They're going to be coming to work for us, in the hopes that when they're graduates, they just start working full time. So it's tough, right? Because at the end of the day, it comes down to money, and it also comes down to a lifestyle, right? Like, with entrepreneurship and running your own business, you're obviously looking to make more money, but it's also, you have a better lifestyle, right? So you can manage your time better, you have a lot more freedom, and you can do the things you want to do. So it's not just a monetary thing, and I try to show that and teach that to my kids, that the school system and just the world in general will try to breed you to be a worker, right? Just another worker, be part of the system. You choose a career, you get in debt, or if you're fortunate enough, your parents will pay for your college, university, you get an education, you come out, you get married, you get a job, so on and so forth. So I think it really comes down to you as a parent to show your kids. And unfortunately, if you're a product of that yourself, and you've gone through that machine and you don't know any better, the majority of people will try to instill that in their kids. Say, like, look, you have to go to school, you have to do this, just because that's been ingrained in them, and they didn't know any other way, right? So as an entrepreneur, I feel like you're already one step ahead. You have this advantage where you can kind of give your kids a peek into this secret world, so to speak, that a lot of kids don't have the opportunity to see. But again, so my stance on it is, obviously, I'm always going to default to entrepreneurship and just going down that route. But again, I would never force anything on my kids. If my kid's obsessed with becoming a surgeon or a firefighter, like I said, because his passion in life is to help people, I would never stand in their way. I would be there to help them as well. Johnny, what do you think?
Yeah, a lot of what you said, I agree with. Just in simple terms, it's, same thing. I'll never stand in my kids' way of what they want to do. I'm a little bit indifferent, just in terms of, if you're going to school to become a doctor, a lawyer, something like that, definitely, you have to go through the channels, and you're gonna, go to the colleges and universities get that degree. But I'm also, just being an entrepreneur. I'm a grade 10 dropout. I don't even have all my credits in grade 10, and I have many people that have degrees that work for me directly. It just goes to show you that a lot of times things just can't be taught in a classroom, right? The way to learn and the way to find a passion is to go out and explore, right? And unfortunately, a lot of that is not inside a classroom. And I always say, working for somebody, I always feel like I'm going to be hit at a cap, right? They depict my future, right? Where I want to have the ability to control what my future is, how much I'm going to make this year, how much I'm potentially going to make in 5-10 years, right? I like to be in control of that, right? So a lot of times, me and my wife, we talk about this a lot because I also have 2 girls and 1 boy, right? And I try to have conversations with my wife and my little girls that find something you like to do and be the best at it and be the owner, right? Start your own business, because a lot of times, I hear of a lot of these kids that it's like, oh, I'm going to school for business because eventually I want to open up my own business. And it's like, okay, well, what type of business are you going to get into? Why not go work that business, learn the ins and the outs, right, while making money, instead of sitting behind a desk in a classroom in front of lectures, for 3 hours. I don't see it, right? Now, granted, the one thing I will say is there's different types of learners, right? And this is where I've always personally, like, just for me, I found myself always having a problem with school is I'm a very visual and hands-on learner, right? So, I need to do something in order to learn it, right? I can't sit there and just take notes and then, go do a test and now go apply that to the real world, right? It's not the way my brain functions. The way my brain functions is show me, let me touch it, let me feel it, let me try it, right? Let me get good at it, and then I can proceed to seeing if I like it and if I want to start a business with it, right? But Costa, we've been friends since we were very young, right? And I remember you going through university and me working, right? I'm not saying one was right from the other. I know a lot of people, when they go through university or college, the biggest takeaway I hear is it literally created who I am today. So I don't take that away from the school system, right? Like they literally start to find themselves. They start to interact with certain groups and find new friends, and that can open up, obviously, a lot of opportunities as well. But, I can say from the age of 16, probably even younger, actually, 15, since I got into the trades, I was making money while I was learning, right? I wasn't paying to learn something inside a classroom, and after 5-6 years, depending on how I did, would depict whether I'm allowed to get into this sector, right? Whether it be, being a doctor, a lawyer, or anything like that. And I just wasted all this money and I've racked up all this debt, right? Because that's another thing too. That's a reality. A lot of people, they go into these colleges and universities, like Charlie said, at a younger age, like 17, 18, 19 years old, and they have to pick a path, right? And they still don't know what path they want to go down. Like they're still, to me, young, still trying to find themselves, right? And now they've racked up all this debt. They didn't take school seriously. And, a lot of people are sitting there with, unfinished degrees or degrees that they got that they can't even apply to the real world, right? So.
And that, what's funny? It's like there's this correlation. I know when I was in high school, there's this correlation between intelligence and how many diplomas and, certificates you have. But growing up, I found that some of the smartest people that I've ever met in my life were either high school dropouts or, started university and left immediately. And one thing they had in common is that they were all entrepreneurs. They all started businesses, right? So it's like to say that it's to measure intelligence based on how far you went in school is crazy.
Yeah, that's a very old thing. That's like a 1950s, 1960s thing, because again, right, guys?
Yeah, but it's still, but this is how it's still talked about to this day, John. Right?
I
Like
know, and look, it's
the average person sends their kids to school and they tell them it's like you have to do this because this is just like the norm, the social norm, and there's that correlation between success and going to university.
I had
Right?
this same
And
conversation.
people don't want to take the risks.
Yeah, I had the same conversation with my mom, right? Because my mom's very old school, and you know, I just had one rebuttal for her. I said, "Name me the three most successful people right now on the top of your head, right? Like richest people, successful, whatever you want to call it, right?" And like right away, it was like, you know, Elon Musk, you know, Bill Gates, and I can't remember who the third one was. She said. I said, okay, and we looked it up, and it's like, look, all dropouts, right? They had a passion. They went to work, created a business, right? Now I'm not saying obviously you have surgeons, doctors. We need everything, right? Like we need a mixture of everything. Now, if somebody has a passion to do that, 100%, like you said, Charlie, don't stop your kids, right? Like I want to fuel my kids' passion and not suppress it. But at the same time, just like that clip shows you, right? A lot of people, I remember even getting into the trades. I remember, you know, somebody at the bank when I had to go get my first loan for my car just to get to and from work. They said, you know, what occupation are you? It's like, oh, I'm a plumber. I'm going in for a plumbing apprenticeship. They're like, to be honest with you, everybody who comes in for a mortgage, that's a plumber, you know, electrician, HVAC, right? Those are always like those people have like almost 100% approval rates.
Look, I'm going to share a story, a little peek into mine and Johnny's past. But when we thought about starting the company 15 years ago, I'll never forget this. Not a single person in my life encouraged me to do so. And it was actually quite the opposite. Everybody thought I was out of my mind. I was a union plumber. I was 25. I was making $43 an hour at the time. I had everything going for me, right? And I was making more money than people's parents, right? At the age of 25. So it wasn't until just one of my friends, who was actually the only one that kind of was willing to listen to me and the plan. And he asked me, he goes, well, how is this going to work? What's the total investment? And I said, Johnny's going to put in 10 grand and I'm going to put in 10 grand. And you know, when everything's said and done, we buy a truck, we buy tools, we pay for some advertising, we wrap the truck. We'll probably have $4,000 or $5,000 left in the account, and that is literally our savings. And we have to live off of that, and we have to start making money right away. And he looked at me and he said, "What's the worst case scenario?" I said, "It fails, and I got to pay back the $10,000 loan that I took, right?" And he goes, "Okay." And he goes, "You're telling me that you make $42 an hour now?" I go, "Yeah." He goes, "How quickly can you get a job if this doesn't work out?" I said, "The next day." So he goes, "Are you kind of like catching my drift? Like, what's $10,000? You're going to take a huge swing at life. And the worst case scenario that if you miss, you're going to owe a bank $10,000, right?" And it wasn't until he like painted that picture for me that I realized that the fear that I had wasn't a logical fear. It was that I had just been indoctrinated at such a young age to just naturally be afraid of the unknown, because all I knew was just to go to work and make money and pay my bills. I didn't know anything else. I had never been taught anything else. I had never been shown any other way. So it was this like completely illogical fear of nothing. And as soon as he put it like that, I remember I got off the phone with him. I picked the phone back up and I called Johnny and I said, "I'm in, let's do it." Right? And it just goes back to this point that the education to your children, especially if you're already an entrepreneur, is so crucial. And don't be afraid to start showing them these things at 6, 7 years old. Because even if you think they're too young to understand, children are a lot smarter than we give them credit for. And they may not fully understand a concept, but it's baby steps. They're going to understand bits and pieces. And imagine now your kid at 12 years old fully understanding the concept of entrepreneurship, where a 17, 18-year-old has no idea and he's trying to pick a career that he's going to dive into and get himself into all kinds of debt at the age of 17, right? So it really falls on our shoulders to be the ones to create that path for them and give them those options.
Well said, Charlie.
Yeah, totally agree. You know, for me, I got a lot of thoughts on this. Like, unlike you guys, I went through the path. Like, I went to school, went to university, got my degree, you know, hanging on my office here. So
Still hanging
coming
proudly.
from someone, yeah. Um, so coming from someone who's gone to university, has a degree, truthfully, I think universities, so I can't agree more with that video that guy is saying. I think universities, colleges, like they are being diluted in terms of their value every single day, like exponentially. I think by the time, unless these universities or colleges do some drastic reforms, I think in the next 10, 20 years, like by the time our kids are at that age where they're thinking about college, I think enrollment of these institutions are going to drop off significantly, because like if you just look at the cost benefit of like going to university, right, racking up like 50, 60, like if you're going away like 6 figures, and these prices, tuition fees are just growing year by year. There's no, the cost benefit doesn't make any sense at all. Like I can tell you, like I don't think I retained anything I've learned in school, like straight up. All of the experience and like knowledge, experiences that I've gained has been from the real world. And I think that is being exposed now more than ever through technology, like just the information that's accessible to anyone. You can learn as much as a university graduate online, especially now with AI. And Johnny, to your point, like even like, you know, doctors, lawyers, my prediction is like right now you technically have to have like a degree to like actually be a lawyer. But I think you can be a better lawyer, a better doctor by learning that on your own than going to university. Like I can't tell you how many recent experiences where I've had with like doctors specifically where like I was way more knowledgeable about certain aspects than they are. You know,
Yeah.
and like I'm not claiming to be an expert here, but like that's unacceptable. That shouldn't be the case. And I think like a lot of these university degrees and like certificates and stuff is just getting totally exposed through just like information availability and that. So another prediction I might have is like in 20 years to be a lawyer, maybe you don't need that like traditional certificate. Like I can study online, be more knowledgeable than a doctor that studied to university. Like, why can't I be a doctor?
Yeah,
Like,
as
does
long
that
as you can
make
pass the
sense?
test. You know, it's like
That's what I
one of
mean.
one of my favorite movies of all time, Good Will Hunting. It's like that famous scene when he's in the Harvard bar, and you know he kind of gets into this argument with this Harvard student who's trying to show him up with his knowledge, and Matt Damon kind of schools him, and he looks at him. He goes like, the funniest part about this is like you just spent $100,000 on your education, and all I have is a library card, right? And I
That's
read
what
the
I
same
mean.
books
Yeah,
as you did.
exactly. So yeah, personally, I don't see the value in university or colleges at all. Like I would probably encourage my kids to avoid that. I don't think my kids will
Now,
go to
Costa, let me ask
university
you
or
this:
college.
what if your son or daughter just turns around and tells you like, I have this burning passion inside of me that I just want to help people, and I want to be a surgeon. I want to be a cardiac surgeon.
Yeah, like you guys, I would never, whatever their passion is, like I'm 100% behind them, right? Like no question about that. And if
I
that's
would,
what
Yeah.
they want to do,
yeah,
go for it.
truthfully, Charlie,
But
in that sense, um, you know, I think what a lot of parents fail to do right now as well is because, okay, you know, like I have a passion to help people. I want to become a surgeon, right? It's like, okay, it's like fair. It's like, well, why don't we try to start getting a job, you know, at a clinic, at something, right? See what it's like. See what the process is like before, you know, you commit 5, 6, 7, 8 years of your life and hundreds of, and
Yeah, dedicate your
yeah,
whole life.
and
Yeah.
like again, you got to try something, right? Like you, Charlie, before you got into plumbing, you're a roofer, right? You thought like when you got into roofing, did you think, oh, I'm going to become a roofer for the rest of my life? No, like You go, you try it.
But so that's a good point though, right? Because that's a good point. So like the roofing was, for me, it was all about the money. It was always about money. So that's a great point. That's where the education comes in, because if you teach your kids about entrepreneurship and like that, there's different paths. If they're looking at becoming a mechanical engineer, I think more than likely it's because you're looking at it that you might have an interest in it, but it's mostly a monetary. It's a monetary view, right? The motivation is money. As where if you're more of the like, I want to become a firefighter, it becomes less about the money and more because you really want to save people, right? And at that point, I think there's nothing you can do. Like you just have to, if that's what your child wants to do and they have this passion, it's like, okay. But if the education comes in and you're really showing them on the money side, when they get to the point, if they might have wanted to be a mechanical engineer, they might be more inclined now to say, you know what, if it's about the money, I'm not going to do this because I don't have this crazy passion to become a mechanical engineer. I'm going to look at drawings all day and just do calculations. It's not really something, it's no longer a motivator.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
that's very true.
That's a great point.
Like in my case, the only reason I went in, so I got my Bachelor of Commerce, I decided to major in accounting. The only reason I picked accounting was because I thought I could make the most money as an accountant.
Exactly.
There's no other reason than that.
Like, you want to crunch numbers all day, every day?
Yes. But I wish, looking back, I wish I had the like encouragement to like, you know what, just like get jobs, intern here.
Yeah,
you know, try different things. Like I would have much rather do that.
Yeah,
and see, like another.
Go on.
I was gonna say quickly, John. Like another issue too is like people, don't talk about as much is the immigration, right? Like the amount of people coming into this country every day. So I was speaking to my friend's niece, and she just graduated. She's trying to get a job, and a job position that her cousin once applied for, like maybe 10, 15 years ago. She was up against, let's say, 15, 20 people. As we're now, there was like 150 plus applicants, right? And the large majority of them were immigrants. So she just spent 4 years in university. She got a degree, only to now compete for a job that used to pay $60,000, $70,000, is now paying $50,000. Because guess what? If you don't like it, the door's right there. And there's another 150 people that are willing to take that salary. So, the jobs are being diluted as well. The salaries are being diluted when inflation is at an all-time high and people can't even afford groceries, right? So like back to Costa's point, it almost feels like these colleges and universities are a literal house of cards. It's like a fucking scam that is just waiting to come crumbling down.
Cash grab.
Right? And I think the only thing that is keeping it together is this notion that it's like, oh, you wanna do this, then you need that piece of paper. But as soon as people get their mind off of that, it's all coming down.
But look, last point on this, even with the college and universities, I don't want to bash them too much because I know, I think we can all attest that we know a lot of people who are successful going through, the schooling system. But again, when they had a passion and a clear direction, right? But also too, let's be honest, right? I'll speak from experience with my wife, right? She went to, a very prestigious university, and she wanted to study for one thing in particular. But in order to study for that, right, or get a degree in that, they made them take a bunch of courses. And I remember when we were dating, it's like, oh, I'm taking this course. It's like, what the hell does that have to do with this? And it's like, oh, it's a prerequisite. Like we have to be able to take these courses in order to get this degree. And it's like, but and even young, right? Like I remember I was like in my late teens, early 20s. I was like, but what does this have to do with, becoming a professional in this? Like, makes no sense, right? And again, it's like you said, Costa, right? I feel like they are now, like colleges and universities, they're being degraded. Like personally, I think, and again, I'm not an expert on this. This is just my opinion, but I think colleges offer a lot more because there's a lot of more hands-on training than the universities. I find universities still massive lecture halls, remember everything you can, and then there's a test next week, right? But I truly believe that unless you have a big reform, right, on how these industries are going to run in order to get a degree, right? Or how these like institutions are going to run in order to get a degree to get into, the next stage of their life. There needs to be a reform, right? Because again, I know we can all just on the top of our heads name people that we know that went through these institutions, had 60, 70, 100, 150, $200,000 racked up of like, student loans, and they're doing nothing with it, right? Why? Because number one, they picked something when they were young. They went through the system. They changed majors. They changed this. They changed that. They didn't know where they were going, and it puts a lot of pressure. And at the same time, they're not making any money. They're drowning in debt. It's like you said too, Charlie. It's a failed system. It's a house of cards, and I feel like it's designed to be like that, right? A lot of times, again, you trust the people with the experience, right? How do you gain experience? You got to go out and you got to do it. That's it. You got to get your hands dirty.
I'm pulling this up from a newsletter that I subscribe to, which is it just jogged my memory. So like, check this out. Old path: school, get a job, savings, retire. So this old path is done with. Like, this is a new age we're living in, right? So like now, it's like gain skills, which is easier now than ever before. Like, you don't need school to gain any skill you want. Okay. Relationships, mindset gives you freedom. It's already changing, but 10, 20 years, this old school kind of mindset is a thing of the past. Like, we're done.
Retirement, that word is one of like the saddest words I've ever heard in my life. When I speak to just an average Joe 9 to 5, and they speak about retirement like it's this holy grail. There's one guy in particular I was speaking to the other day, and he's going to retire in like 5 years, and he's just like, he's so thrilled about it. But when I start questioning him on it, and I'll ask him like, okay, well, what are you planning on? Why is this such a positive thing? Like, what are you planning on doing when you turn 65 and you can finally retire? And he honestly had no idea. He's like, I don't know. I might go fishing a little bit more, and I might go golfing. He really like didn't have a clear-cut answer. All it was in his mind was, I no longer have to work. And it just goes back to this like connection to like work being this negative thing. And most people, unfortunately, live that way. And they go through the motions. And it's like, if you're doing something just for the money and you have no passion, no love for it whatsoever, and you're just using it as a means to eventually retire and then start living your life at 65, you're not going down the right path.
It's really sad. I actually think that's like really sad to live.
It is.
Spend 30, 40 years of your life like
waiting till you get old.
9 to 5, like not really happy.
Yeah, waiting to
with what you're doing. Can't wait for the weekends. You dread Mondays. You're waiting till you hit 65 so you can just stop doing that thing you've been doing for the last 40 years.
Yeah,
I think that's very sad, truthfully.
And then the reason I brought that up is because there's nothing wrong with working a 9 to 5. Like I said, if you have the passion for it, like if you want to be a firefighter and you love what you do, you will be happy. You're going to live a fulfilled life, and you're going to have a big smile on your face, and the money isn't going to be everything. But if you're someone that you're going into something just to make money, and you're willing to sacrifice your happiness, and you're going to dread waking up every single day, you really have to stop yourself, especially as a 17-year-old kid, and just really, like Johnny said, like just try things out. Maybe put the school on hold. Let me go try to do an internship. Let me go work in a clinic. Let me go see if I can help out at a fire hall. Whatever the case may be, just to actually see if it's something you want to dive into, right? Because it may be the biggest mistake you've ever made in your life.
And it's easier now than ever. Like, we have everything at our disposal to learn any skill, try different things, like at your fingertips. So like there's really no excuse. To try not to do, like to do everything you can to make sure you're doing what you love. Because like you said, it doesn't matter if you're an entrepreneur, 9 to 5. The people who've won the game of life are the people who wake up every single day, just love what they're doing and happy. It doesn't feel like work. Whether you're an artist, a firefighter, whatever, right? An entrepreneur. you've won the game of life at that point. So, but yeah, point is like now's the time. There's no better time to do this. You don't need school to learn skills to get that job to make money, whatever it is. And
Yeah.
yeah,
And I doubt there's any 17-year-olds looking to this, but I know that there's a whole whack of older entrepreneurs that are listening to this and young entrepreneurs that have children. So just keep that in mind that, you know, it's on your shoulders. Introduce the idea to your kids, right? And just show them the light.
for sure. All right, boys, let's wrap there. Good episode. If you're listening this far, make sure you subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, wherever you listen to podcasts. Follow us on Instagram, and check out Jobtable.com. If you're a construction company, a contractor looking to streamline the way you run your business, save a whole bunch of time on your admin, and just be more productive, Jobtable.com. There's a 14-day free trial, and give it a shot. Boys, until
Good
next
episode,
week.
guys.
Till next week, boys. Thank you.
All right.
Ciao.
Later.
Talk soon.